I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I'm so grateful that I get to introduce you to powerful women, extraordinary women that inspire me. They are women that are making a difference on the planet. They are women who have taken their lives into their own control and do what they need to do to make a difference on this planet. They're way showers. So we do these every week. We're on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, Amazon, and video on YouTube. Sign up, come back every week, and get inspired. You can also go to cynthiajames.net. That's my website. There's gifts in my newsletter there. My aim is to support you in being the greatest possibility that you can express. So my guest today is actually someone I met at a speaking event, and she really inspired me. So I asked her to be on the podcast. Her name is Diya. She has more than 25 years of experience as a technologist and has been at AWS for 6 years. She is the Senior Practice Manager in Responsible AI, heading the worldwide practice dedicated to customer engagement. She has honed her skills in scaling products for acquisition, spearheading initiatives for inclusion, diversity, and equity, leading operational transformation across various industries. And she's leveraged the historical and social context that influence her approach to responsible and inclusive AI-ML products. She also meets with legislators and policymakers globally to provide a perspective and influence imminent regulation and policy on AI. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for being here, Diya.
Thank you so much for having me. And I must say that you inspired me as well when we were at the WOW event as well. So thank you so much, Generation W.
Yeah. Well, I want to start with how you grew up. I'm sure you didn't come on the planet saying, I'm going to be an AI expert. How did you grow up?
Well, it actually was kind of close. Well, not quite AI expert, but I'll tell you that I started off fairly early with an interest in computers. So I received my first computer in the third grade. This was quite a long time ago. So it was not like the computers that we have in our pockets today on our phones. But I received my first computer in the third grade for having the highest reading and math scores in the school at the time. And so it was an award. And unlike how we think about things today, everyone has a computer in our home, right? Or most folks do. And back then we didn't, right? Computers in your home, computers in school were somewhat abnormal as well. And so I was fascinated by it. It was a very simple computer for those that might be familiar. It's the Commodore VIC-20, so our earlier personal computing type system. It was black and white, no color, right? But for me, I told my mom at the time that I wanted to be a computer engineer. Third grade, 8 years old. So not quite getting out, coming onto the planet, but shortly thereafter, I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I actually have followed somewhat in that those footsteps. I am not a computer engineer, but pretty close. I studied computer science. I did go to school and studied computer engineering at a dual degree, computer engineering, computer science at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And physics was getting the best of me. So I pivoted and did a computer science bachelor's and then a minor in mathematics. But I've been in computers. I started working in computers when I was in college, and I've not done anything else all of my life. I've been in technology and working on technology platforms since the very start. And it's weird because that's not what people did, right? Like there are no examples of women in women in tech or women in science, even in any of our studies, not in the books I read. I tell people this all the time. So it was very abnormal. My family members, those that were closest to me, were teachers. My it was acceptable to be a teacher or a
Mhm.
homemaker, maybe
Yes.
a nurse, maybe a nurse. My aunt was a nurse, and that was about it in terms of the professional people around me. So I don't even know. I can't even tell you how I thought about computer engineering at this
Right.
particular. I don't have any concept, but that's what I said, and this is what I've done all my life.
Well, it's so impressive. And I got to tell you, when you were on that stage and you were breaking down artificial intelligence, it was so refreshing because here's the truth. Most of us are scared of it.
Right.
Most of us are like, what is it? What does it mean? Is it going to take over our lives and we're going to be irrelevant? I mean, it's out there. So from your point of view, what's the importance of artificial intelligence?
Well, so I think one of the major things is that we're using it every day.
Eh,
And that was one of the things that I was sharing with the audience, the women there. I recognize that most people are somewhat afraid of it. And part of that is because we don't know, right? They don't know, don't understand. So there's some fear there. But we're using it. If you're we're using Zoom right now. And so in the background, Zoom is smart enough to know that there's certain noises it can cancel out and reduce those sounds and interruptions. That's being done by artificial intelligence. We type in our texting on our phones or on our email, and it suggests certain words because it has seen us write certain things, and there are patterns of words that typically come after the other. That's artificial intelligence. Most of the time we call in those phone trees that are trying to recognize our voice and then direct us to the right customer service representatives or no one. And we go in the infinite loop sometime. I mean, that's artificial intelligence. We're around it all the time. And so one of the things that I like to do is unpack or help people recognize that they're using it a lot. And so the degree of fear that some people have can be minimized. Now, there are things that we should be concerned about for
like what?
sure. But the fears and some of the ways that people have, I like to try to minimize because you're interacting and interfacing with it all the time. It's important also because, at least from my perspective, when we're using it all the time, it's being thought about and it's implemented in ways that we probably never realized in more applications than we thought that could shape and change how we interface with the world. But there is also, a possibility or great possibility for unintended impact and harm, and in particular to those of marginalized communities or the underrepresented. And so for me, it's important for us to be thinking about that, understand it, and then have an opportunity, hopefully, to change the face of what people are doing and the ways in which they're using it and the impact that it has on us.
Yeah, I co-teach a class at a university here in Denver, and we were doing some work with professors there, and one of the things that they were talking about was how they're confused about how to deal with students because
Yeah.
students are going out connecting to AI and having AI help them write their papers. And so the teachers are like, did they think about this? Was this AI? How do they manage it and navigate it? And does it harm the students?
Well, so the way that I like to think about it is, some of these conversations we've had before. Just think about when I was in high school, I remember it was one of the first times that they told me that I could bring a calculator to school into my math class. It was the TI 81 Texas Instrument, and it was a graphing calculator. And they started integrating the use of that technology into the classrooms. The same thing is true, like when we started to embrace the internet, and now we had this resource online that schools had to grapple with. How do you incorporate that into the class and recognize that students are going to use it? And so I think that as we're thinking about some of the generative AI or chat GPT, I believe is what you're talking about, that people are sort of challenged with, that we've got to take a step back and think about those disruptive technologies or that we found a way to incorporate and actually think about incorporating it. One of the things I think that you can use it or help students use it in like creating outlines and looking at other sources, but they should never copy it, just like we couldn't copy out of the encyclopedia. We had Encyclopedia Britannica and they told you that you could research, but you couldn't copy word from that, right? You couldn't so you had to learn how to cite it. So we should be giving them context for being able to cite what's online that they're exploring and using. Think about it like another, source, another resource, and help to teach them, how to integrate that and use it. But that's my thought. I think that we can't block it. We shouldn't be restricting people from using it, especially our students, because they're going to live in a world in the next few years where that's all that they're going to be around, technology and engaging and interacting. So we don't want to restrict them. They're going to have to understand how to operate along with it in the future.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are, you're a big deal in this industry. You're talking to legislators and policymakers. First of all, do they even understand what the heck you're talking about when you're talking to them, or do you have to break it down bite size?
Well, that's part of what it is, right? That's part of the role that I get to play is actually going in. It's necessary for government and public and private sector to be working together because most of our legislators are not in technology, so they don't understand. And some of that can be evidenced by any of the congressional hearings that you've watched or listened to as they're exploring what happened with Facebook or some other technology, right? So part of the job has been to help them understand actually how the technology works, where there are areas of risk, what can we think about when we're starting to think about legislation. And I get to bring also a perspective of what's happening that's good and some of the great ways that we're using it, because I think there has to be balance. There's always a duality that exists, the opportunity for people to use something for good and for it to be used for bad. And we want to have the right control so that we minimize the bad use cases, because there's some great things being done with the technology. For instance, I was telling someone, they've been finding a way to predict earlier indicators of heart disease, which is the number one killer of people.
Right.
And now that they can predict this early enough that they might be able to actually introduce more preventative care to stop and reduce the number of people dying from heart disease every year.
Yes.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
That's one of those use cases where we want people to be able to use technology. We don't want to restrict it. We don't want to remove that, but we've got to put the right controls around because, there are ways in which it can, in fact, harm or disadvantage other people. And we want to be mindful of that, put the controls in place to reduce that or to stop it entirely.
Absolutely. So are you a family person? Are you married? Do you have children?
I am. So I am married. I've been married 17 years.
Wow.
And been with my husband for 20. And I have two boys. And they're one teenager, one soon to be teenager. My oldest just turned 16. It's unbelievable to think that that's happened. But yes. Family is a major part of my life and certainly a priority.
Okay, so I want to talk about this because what it says in your bio is that, okay, you're not only an international best-selling author and a speaker in your industry and DEI across 15 countries, including Ukraine, Belgium, Australia, United Nations Assembly. I mean, all of these places. I want to know, how do you find the harmony in doing this intense, powerful work and making family a priority?
Yes. So, and I love the word that you said, right? Because some people often talk about balance and sometimes it's not balanced.
Right.
It really is about finding the harmony, right? There are a few things that I do and I've been better about it in later years and I also great about it at other times. But, when I have to travel, I've found opportunities where I can take my children and take my husband. And sometimes we leave the kids and just my husband comes with me. or we found times to take, so my kids have been to Dubai and Australia and
Wow.
London, because we take them along with us and we make them learning experiences. I
Great.
make them write papers. They have
Yeah.
to journal and keep a log of the things that they learned and that sort of thing, to help them so that this is a learning opportunity and not just a vacation. So we've done that, right, to bring the family in, to integrate them into my work. When I'm home, and I used to do this as well. When I came back home, I would then be dedicated to my family. So dad gets the day off, I go, and it's just the boys and I, and we would. I've probably seen every movie, cartoon. All that. They love the movies more than anything. We would go to the movies. So I come Friday, Saturday would be the movie day, and I would just do something with them to prioritize the time with them, to hopefully reinvest. I've also been able and fortunate enough to prioritize my time and adjust my travel so that I don't miss important moments. I did this
Mhm.
once. I never forget. It was my son's second birthday, my youngest, and Noah loved Batman, and I had to be at a leadership meeting in Philadelphia, and I was not home the day of his birthday, and it
Mm.
ripped me apart. And so I got the biggest Batman balloon that I could. It was like an actual physical Batman.
Mhm.
He leaned over. I could barely stuff it in the rental car to drive back from Pennsylvania here to Maryland. And I brought it home. It was bigger than he was. And that was sort of my way of like apologizing for missing that moment. And, he was young enough. He really didn't have the context for it, but it mattered to me. And so
Right.
after that time, I continued to try to adjust my schedule so that I don't miss the big moments.
Right.
So if my son was in Taekwondo and he's now a black belt, if he had some training or a match, right, I'm going to make sure that I can be there. If, school play or their band concert, I'm taking off, and I try to prioritize that. And then throughout COVID, I had to put on my calendar like the time that they get out of school, and I still hold this, like they're between 4 and 4:30. Both of them are home. Every day on my calendar, there's a time block. And I just walk away from my desk because I work from home most of the time when I'm not traveling. And those are the little things that I've been able to put in place to help balance
Mhm.
the time with my family and my sons, and do all the work that I do as well. And sometimes I'm great at it, and other times I'm not, and I'm good at apologizing. And I'll come to my family and tell them like this is important and I have to do this and I'm gonna adjust and I love you all, and I even talk to them about why I do the work that I do and why it's
Right.
important, not to just me, like for money, but for us and our family. And so we have those conversations as well. And I think that helps to create the balance. And then, as far as my husband, I try to take time like to actually steal away, like have Papa come hang out with the boys and we run and go do something just so that we could spend time. But
Two things you said I loved. One was the travel. I believe if people traveled more and interacted with different cultures, we wouldn't be as divided. Second of all, I love that you prioritize your family time when the boys are come home, that half hour. It makes a difference. Um, because I don't know that anybody can have it all, but we can definitely set up our priorities and know what things are non-negotiable. These things are not going to be pushed to the side. They're
right.
going to be important. So I would love to know, how do people find you?
Sure. I am on LinkedIn. My handle is Diya K Wynn, DIYA KWYNN. And my website as well is diyakwynn.com. So they can find me there. And on Instagram, Diya K Wynn. So Diya K Wynn everywhere.
Well, I'm just so honored to know you, and I just think it's beautiful. And this is just my personal thing I want to say here: to see a woman of color who's so connected and informed about something that can scare people and push them away, and for you to have such a lovely gift of being able to express it to us in a way that we can go, oh, maybe we can get curious here. Maybe we can actually engage with this and not be afraid that it's going to take us down. So thank you so much for your contribution in the world.
Oh, well, thank you. That's my hope. I mean, indeed it is. My hope is that we can bridge the gap in terms of what people understand and know of the technology. I'm a technologist at heart, but also help to encourage people to understand it more, and so that we are working in ways that the technology benefits us and doesn't harm us.
Absolutely. So, I asked the same last question of every guest. This show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important thing about women awakening on the planet in this time?
Wow, the most important thing, I think it is, and I'll share this. I've said this oftentimes, that I believe it's actually we should refuse to assimilate.
Mm.
And I think that's important because I've done that. I've assimilated early in my career. I thought that I could just come into the office, do my job, and hide, wear my gray or black suits, and hopefully I wouldn't be seen. And actually, it's a little ridiculous because a Black girl in an all white male environment was going to stand out. But I think that now that I understand this better, I think it's so important for us to stand out, right? To stand out and be seen and be heard and be accounted for. And so if I think about that in the context of everything that is happening, it's often easy to not hear our voices or to hide the voice,
Yes.
right? And there's so much that happens. We were just looking at this the other day, the statistics in terms of the compacted discrimination and or challenge that Black women have versus just women, or versus just Blacks, right?
Mhm.
Or Black men. It necessitates even the more, that we continue to stand and are willing to be sometimes even relentless in ensuring that we are seen and heard.
Yes.
And I think that we too have a responsibility as well to make sure that this nurturing gift that we've been given, and all that we are, like the uniqueness that we bring, that we use that in ways to create space for
Mhm.
those that are yet to come, like my sons and the children after us. The legacy that we leave is one of empowered women, creating a space that actually helps to give us place in sometimes in a place in an environment, or give us space in an environment that wasn't created for us.
Yes,
We hear and we
absolutely.
can be seen.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I've loved having you here. I can't wait
Thank
to
you.
share you with the audience. And ladies, I want to just say this to you. I love what Dia just said. You're here to be visible. You're here to stand out. You're
Right.
here to bring your voices. You're here to shine and bring your gifts. Make no mistake about it. Don't let anyone tell you, don't let anyone try to pull you away from that truth. Because the more you shine, the more you stand in your power, the more you stand in the presence that you are, the more lives you touch and the bigger difference you make. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you next time.
Thank you for giving us a space to continue to shine. We appreciate you as well.